Hello and welcome to our session of the Christian Meditation Prayer Group in St Mary's Church in Killarney on the live streaming channel. It's lovely to have you join us on this session, and if you're catching up with us on the YouTube channel, it's lovely also to have you join us as well. We are all together despite the distance and time and differences between us. So, as we prepare for our meditation, we remember the technique that we use to close our eyes, relax the body, and at the sound of the gong to bring in our sacred word or mantra, Maranatha. And then at the end of the session, you will hear a double gong. So you may release the mantra, release the sacred word, and bring the body back from deep relaxation. And then the final gong is the signal to gently open the eyes, so we don't get too much of a shock to the nervous system from opening the eyes. So let us now prepare ourselves for our meditation. We close our eyes and relax the body. out of the window here, I can see it's raining. And that brings to mind a story. I once was in the park in Lichfield in England at a Rotary International outdoor event, and the Bishop of Lichfield had been invited to open the event, and the reporters, the news media, were standing around, and they interviewed him afterwards. And one of them said, I hope you've prayed for the rain to hold off. And the bishop frowned slightly and paused and thought for a moment. And he said, that's maintenance. I'm operations. Which I always found really amusing. Very clever answer. Very clever answer. The idea that, in fact, it actually is quite an interesting idea. This idea of who has responsibility for something. The notion that a bishop can pray to God and the rain will run away is not unusual. There is a story in the Bible similar to that. But I want to think for a moment about the idea of responsibility and its relationship to power. So I want, first of all, in a few short minutes, for you to sit and think for a moment. Think for a moment about those occasions when you have been given responsibility for something. Let's just give a few moments to think of occasions of that kind. Okay, so it might be quite easy for you to have identified occasions when that has happened. So next I want you to think about occasions when you have taken responsibility for something, not been given it, but taken it to yourself. So let's just give a couple of moments to recall occasions of that kind. So it may be that there were fewer opportunities for you to recall such an event as that, but maybe there were one or two of them at some time in your life. Now let's think about this in a slightly different way. Let's think about the idea of responsibility being assumed. That is to say, it wasn't given and it wasn't taken to you, but actually it was a subconscious thing that you assumed you had responsibility for something and you hadn't really thought about it either way. But according to the behaviour and actions that you had on that occasion, it would be clear that you had assumed you had responsibility. So let's see if we can think about any of those. Okay, so there is of course another category that fits in with this scenario, and that is the occasion when responsibility was taken from us. Rather than us taking it, it was taken from us. So let us see if there are occasions we can recall when, rather than taking it to ourselves, it was taken from us. Okay, so each of these different scenarios represents a different sequence, a different set of parameters, a different story and memory that we may have, and a different effect that will have come from them. But in each one, there is also the idea of power. When we are given responsibility, we are given power to fulfill that responsibility. We're given the means to do it. If we take responsibility for ourselves, then in some senses we need to take power as well in order that we can fulfill the responsibility we have taken to ourselves. And of course, the opposite, if responsibility is taken from us, then power is taken from us as well. But what about the third case? What about the case where we assumed, without being conscious of it, that we have responsibility? Where is the power there? It'd be very difficult to locate it. It may be that there was some innate power available, as it were, some authority, perhaps. But generally speaking, in most occasions, if we assume we have responsibility, then it's generally speaking the case that the power is lacking, and therefore the assuming of responsibility, because nobody else knows you've done it, basically. So how can the power be transferred? If I assume that I have responsibility for something and other people are blithely ignorant of the fact, then I can't see many ways in which I can actually assert the responsibility I seem to have taken to myself without acknowledging it. And in a sense, this is helpful to us in understanding the way our meditation works. The idea here is that most of the time, spiritually, we will find that we have assumed responsibility and we behave accordingly, subconsciously. But in our meditation, that is when we discover that we have assumed it and it wasn't ours to begin with. And the reason that is apparent is because when we meditate, we begin to see that the assumption that we have responsibility for the meditation and for the outcome begins to manifest itself in our thoughts and in our expectations. We begin to expect things to happen, we begin to anticipate them, we begin to look for them. And those are signs that we have assumed responsibility for the process of meditation. And in effect, that assuming of responsibility gets in the way, because ours is not the responsibility in the meditation to achieve, to succeed, to gain some benefit from it. No, the responsibility lies with God and the Holy Spirit to do that within us. So in the sense that we have taken, or we have assumed, should I say, we have assumed responsibility subconsciously for it, then we will be undermining the responsibility that God has and the Holy Spirit to be able to effect the changes in us that are necessary that our meditation is seeking to bring about, that we may become closer to Christ and more godly in our behaviour, in our thoughts, in our actions. So it's quite helpful for us to recognise that there is this category where spiritually we have unwittingly assumed that we have responsibility for these things, and therefore it means that we would be attempting to do our meditation out of our own effort, and that is in a sense a disaster for our meditation, because we are trying to be effortless in our meditation. So as we face this coming week, following the weekend until our next session, a week today at 7 o'clock in the evening, let us reflect in our times of meditation afterwards on the nature of our responsibility or the lack thereof in our meditation practice, and let us try and free ourselves from the instinctive tendency of human beings to feel that they are responsible for things of which God is responsible. So thank you very much for joining us for our live streaming session of our Christian Meditation Prayer Group here in Killarney. And if you're following us on our catch-up recording video on our YouTube channel, then it's equally a pleasure to have you joined us spiritually and to provide your own practice and experience of meditation to the collective experience here and now. So God bless you all and keep you safe. Bye-bye.